Oh, hi. Here we go again. My advice for today, don't take a knife to a gunfight. If you take a knife to a gunfight, most probably you'll end up shot. And your gun, in this case, is a lawyer. Always make sure that your team has a lawyer. Without a lawyer, you are highly prone to get trapped into traps that are left in fine prints or in sentences in contracts that you couldn't interpret properly, or even thinking that you have made a bulletproof contract just to discover that this is unenforceable. Therefore, my advice for you, get a lawyer in your team, and it better be a good lawyer. So, in most cases, most of the C-suite professionals or boards usually will be like a bit cheap when it comes to hiring a lawyer. They always think that what would a lawyer do? He will read contracts, he will interpret English. Who cares? We'll only need a lawyer when we are at court. But guess what? Having a lawyer pre to the point that you get into court can save you a lot of money going into court. Remember, litigation is not cheap, my friend. Not ever cheap. Not in any country in the world. Litigation is always expensive. And you don't want to get to that point. You'd better get covered by contracts and mediation pre to litigation. And the only way to get to this is having a strong business lawyer or business counselor who is able to understand your business and cater things to your need. You don't need a lawyer who will tell you the words of the law, or to reiterate what is obvious, or reiterate something that you can easily find on Gemini or ChatGPT or even Claude, if that makes sense. But you want someone who is able to interpret things and put things together for you and build a puzzle for the help of your specific business. Someone who is able to tailor things to your need. So remember this, not only a lawyer, but a lawyer who understands your business, who really can serve you well, not to be just someone who reiterates things that are like beyond the obvious, my friend. Just like every aspect of life, cheap is expensive. And being cheap when it comes to legal help is extremely expensive. You can structure the legal help either as a full time team member or an outsource to a counselor or outsource to a firm, but you have to make sure that there is a go to legal help whenever the problem arises, or whenever there is a contract, or whenever even you are going into a new venture. And you have to make sure that this legal partner understands your business 110%. You have to sit them down and explain the whole business to them and keep nothing away from them. Keeping anything away from them might just explode in your face later on. This obviously triggers a very important thing, which is that this legal counselor or legal help or legal firm that you are leaning on has to be trustworthy. And yes, there are confidentiality agreements and there are ethics of the job and everything like that. But you need to make sure that this firm or this help will be there when you need it, and they will not just disappear. Because in many cases, um, the you might be counting on someone and they just disappear. They just don't pick up the phone. They don't answer your email. Whatever happens there. Especially if you are outsourcing the job and it's not part of your team. So make sure that if you are hiring either internally in the team or outsourcing it, that the person or the firm that you are leaning on is trustworthy, is someone that you have also some personal rapport with them, and someone that will always pick up the phone on you and always will respond to your email, whatever the situation is, however big or small the problem is, and however many invoices that you might be owing them. But when the fan, you will find them at your site. And I'll tell you a story about how important it is to have a legal counsel. So, in my experience, we were signing some financing documents, a finance contract, to get some uh, working capital into the company, and we depended on our finance team to interpret the whole contract. And signed off, perfect, everything is going fine. A few years down the road, we came into a conflict with our financier. Now, we go back. When there are conflicts, you go back to the contract and you look into the contract. And we looked into the contract with a legal counselor this time, because now we are at a conflict and we might need some mediation or litigation. Who knows? We're still finding our way here. And just to discover that in the fine print, we have put most of the company's assets, including IP assets, as collaterals to a very small debt. And that was a catastrophe of its own, because all of a sudden now we're looking at trademarks, we're looking at formulations, we're looking at trade secrets that are all of a sudden collaterals to a mini debt. And this takes away a lot of the leverage that you can have when you are negotiating during a mediation or during a conflict or whatever it is. Obviously, we had to our negotiation powers were taken away in a way, and we had to play it very safe and move on thin ice, because now you can lose everything. However, the lesson that we learned out of this is never sign a contract or an agreement or any legal bounding document without having a proper legal advice into it. And don't be cheap about it, and don't depend on functional executives on it. Make sure that with the functional executive, there is legal help and there is legal counseling. So let's wrap up. Never take a knife to a gunfight. Our lives as executives has to have around probably 50 to 60% of it as a legal component, either going through contracts, reading legal binding documents, and so on and so forth. Don't be cheap about getting a legal advice and legal help. Um, Legal issues are like a swamp, and in a jungle, you will have to encounter a swamp one time or the other. And swamps are full of small mosquitoes that can give you illness, and big crocodiles that can eat you alive as well. So don't go there unprepared. Be prepared and be ready for the worst. And it's the only way to make it cheap and efficient. Welcome to the jungle.